It's actually really hard to fathom what happened this past weekend in RLCS. Hope you guys all enjoy. Welcome back to week number 2, of course, of EU RLCS breakdown. I'm going to show you guys 4 awards, including the plays of the week this past weekend we did see, but on top of that, a little breakdown on what exactly we saw, because if you guys watch NA as well, NA was nothing compared to EU this past weekend. Tons of upsets, tons of sweeps, some closer sweeps than others as well, and on top of that, some records broken, although for FCB, otherwise known as Barca, maybe not the record you want to break, that being, of course, in their series against Vitality. They become the first ever European RLCS team to be shut out completely in that series. And speaking of Vitality, that not only beat Barca, but also take down #1 Dignitas all in the same weekend. Of course, if you guys have been watching my power rankings episodes as well, Barca and Dignitas were my #1 and 2 teams. And after this past weekend, I don't think many people see them as those #1 and 2 spots ever again. And Vitality certainly up there as well. Now, Vitality this past weekend played Rocket League that I have like never seen before. They were so utterly dominant. It still baffles me. And on top of that, one of the teams they take down, Dignitas, I think a lot of us in our preseason rankings would have said they are certainly going to stay a #1, if not a top 2 team as well. They are now 0-3, and if they don't pick up a win here sometime soon, they'll be trying to play for regional playoffs instead of actually automatically qualifying for the championship itself, which is going to be a stunning fact that actually does happen for Dignitas in the first time in a long time. I think of all the series so far, the only one that went as expected, you know, pretty much to a T, would be TSM sweeping Triple Trouble, but even that series was actually way closer than expected. So tons of things happening, of course, and we're going to break it down for all of you. Let's first hop into, though, our MVPs out there, and I have 3 sets of 2 MVPs. I will explain myself, because I am really bad at choosing individual MVPs out there, especially when we see a Vitality who likely had 3 MVP players out there, but my 2 for at least this first duo are going to be KDOP and Scrub Killer themselves. I think for the first series against Barca, I'd probably slightly give it to Scrub, although game 3 was all KDOP, and then for the Dignitas series, I think I would give it to KDOP for the most influential in terms of goal scores on that roster, but either way, the entire roster performing out of their minds this past weekend, cannot argue with that. They will also be a team of the week, so we'll talk about them more in a bit, but they are certainly worthy of my first MVPs out there. Along with that flip side, the Bricks, having a little bit of trouble choosing who on that roster would be my MVPs. I would say Cookser, but Speed as well. They both popped off. I'm not going to lie about it. You guys already know about it as well. We actually saw this past weekend 2 7-goal games, one by Vitality and one by the Bricks as well. I think Cookser was a large portion of that, but Speed had 4 of those goals in that series. So I think both those players, Speed and Cookser, just tremendous. But I think Cookser had a bit more of an influence this past weekend when they narrowly beat Mouse Sports, the Game 5 overtime, to decide that series, which was pretty scary if you're a Bricks fan. You know, back-to-back series that have been that close. But also, very lastly, when it comes down to PSG, I don't really know who to choose. I think Farah offensively was certainly probably a dominant choice, but I think Fruity as well defensively, that being as well. Certainly, I think lockdown game 2 it was. He made a great defensive play to send it to overtime, which they eventually won and definitely gave them insurance in that series. So 3 different duos. You guys can choose individual MVPs, but I think those 3 teams certainly showcased a couple MVPs across all of their rosters, and this past weekend they were all stellar players. On top of that, though, speaking more importantly of our teams of the week, Vitality, self-explanatory, like many awards this week are, they take down my projected #1 and #2 teams. A lot of you guys still, I hope, think Dignitas is definitely a #1 team as well. They're the most recent reigning champion in terms of DreamHack Leipzig, and it just speaks for itself, the history that team has. So Vitality take down 2 of probably your top 3 teams in EU. That's a speak for itself moment. They are certainly the team of the week, and just all around looking amazing. Even Shawset, who I've not mentioned yet as well, just looking stellar for those guys and setting them up all around the board. On top of that as well, I think I'll give it to PSG, taking down Dignitas as well. Like I said before, a 7-goal game 1. I think that maybe put the nail in the coffin in terms of morale for that Dignitas trio as well. And overall, you know, this defeat by PSG of Dignitas could have put a nail in the coffin for why Vitality beat Dignitas later on, right? Morale-wise, you just lost to PSG, who I consider one of our lower ranking teams because of inconsistency, and this might just be the turnaround for the PSG squad altogether. They're just definitely a team of the week here, viable, because they beat our #1 team in all of Europe. And then very lastly, do I include TSM is my question for all of you, because although they sweep Triple Trouble, this series was a bit questionable. It was very close, especially game 1. I think Triple Trouble threw that. Game 2 is certainly very close as well. I believe that was in the overtime. And then game 3 is where TSM finally turned it on offensively. The 3-0 sweep there in game 3, as well as overall. overall a 3-0 sweep, but I still think very, very close. And the question is, do we include TSM for the team of the week with this victory? Because although they were stellar defensively, offensively they only turned on in that game 3, which worries me a bit. But either way, defensive wise, I saw an amazing performance. The only other performance beating this would be Vitality, and TSM in terms of shots on goal they defended, I think have out-impressed me in that fashion. So those are my 3 teams of this week, and they all, I think, deserved it. And surprisingly, with all these goals scored this weekend, I didn't capture too many highlight moments. If you guys ever want to send me some, I would greatly appreciate that. I do watch each and every individual game, but catching all the individual moments, it can be a little hard so far. So first off, one of my MVPs of the week, that being K-Dop with his trick slow ball.
And now an open chance for K-Dop potentially, and throws a changeup.
He gives him with the changeup, man. He thought the shot was coming in hot. It comes in soft, and that's goal number 2 for game 3.
And it has been Bluey on the back line so many times that he just keeps getting beat by this Vitality offense.
And I'm including this next one because I think it's a very defining play of how this weekend went. It's actually K-Dop scoring, but Scrubkilla making it very possible.
But Yukio is not in the play. He got demoed by Ferry. Now K-Dop with a shot opportunity, and the bump from Scrubkilla. And he helps Vitality get the 2nd goal of the game.
And yes, this was fantastic with the bump from Scrubkilla, I agree, but it actually goes back to that.
And then very lastly, iGnite doing iGnite things. We always love to see this version of him actually hitting these kind of shots.
Precious corner boost for Triple Trouble. And try and make it as difficult as possible for them.
Missing on the pass. Might have been blocked anyway. Remco looking for I shot on it.
You knew it.
Ignite again.
And very lastly, a segment I think is very self-explanatory, much like the other ones so far this weekend, that being underwhelming teams. They have to be Dignitas and Barca. 2 teams I've really expected much more out of. Dignitas, first of all, number 1, 0-2 this weekend. Although they played some pretty good teams, you know, PSG to me was a pretty darn big upset. I think a lot of you guys would agree. Vitality maybe not so much, but the fashion it did happen, a pretty dominant one-sided series there. You have to wonder, hopefully morale-wise they're going to bounce back. We expect them to make regional playoffs and of course eventually the championship series as well, the main stage. I'm not too surprised yet. Of course 0-3 is not what you expect out of them, but I would not be surprised at all to see these guys bounce back and of course make regional playoffs, and we'll see them again on the grand stage once again. But nonetheless, this past weekend was definitely not a good performance out of that team of what we expect to see out of them. And then Barca speaks for itself. They set a record for a shutout series in EU RLCS, the 2nd of all time of all RLCS regions. And it was disappointing to see. I really hope of all the teams out there, these guys are not a mentally driven team in terms of hopefully it's not get them down too much. I want them to get a couple more wins on the board and hopefully get back the ball rolling, because I don't want to see a team out there make a roster change that's not needed right now. A really rough series for them against Vitality, but still a team I highly think can bounce back, much like Dignitas, but they have to be our 2 most underwhelming teams this past weekend by a long shot. But as always, hope you guys all enjoy it. Like I told my the NA viewers out there, I'm trying to make this little screen have some gameplay, but for all of you guys who are wondering, RLCS gameplay is actually copyrighted, so I don't want to get any kind of copyright strike for using it. I'll be using this little screen for Rocket League gameplay. Hopefully it's big enough, but in the future, if you guys want to send me gameplay, feel free. My Twitter is wide open, DMs wise, and we're going to figure something out. So thank you for staying tuned. As always, my name is Jake. I'll see you back here for next week, week number 3 EU Rocket League breakdown, and hopefully some of these king teams, some of these top teams can make their way back and have a competitive race as we enter the later weeks so far. So hope you guys all enjoyed. As always, I'll see you guys next time, and until then, take care.